I think, yeah, if I had that gauntlet when I could kind of snap my fingers, and it would really be to kind of, as bad as it sounds, to take out the top generation of everybody that's kind of within a director or above not necessarily kill them off, but like remove them
Clarissa,
from their role.
oh my God. I'm like, you Thanos for real. You just gonna erase the
No,
boomers?
not erase them.
She's
Give
saying
them retirement early.
Erase.
Let them go enjoy.
She's saying Thanos had a point. That's what she's saying.
God, that's what I took from it.
No,
Clarissa.
No.
Oh
Let her
my God, we gotta
Give
edit
them
this
early
out.
retirement. Let them go enjoy Hawaii, the beachside ocean.
Oh my God.
Let them go do that. And so that way you have, more
Got
I know,
dark
that
real
sounded
quick.
really
Got
bad.
real dark real quick.
What up, and welcome back to Custom Journeys, the podcast that spotlights Black and brown voices in STEM. My name is Eliseo Iglesias, and I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Baines. Please like, watch, and subscribe to us, to the pod on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram by searching for @CustomJourneys. That's CUSTEM Journeys. We are very excited to have on a wonderful guest, Clarissa Hernandez. She is an engineering manager at Atlas Lens Company. She has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from UT San Antonio. She's also a project management professional, or PMP, and an engineering and training EIT. She has tons of experience in theme park engineering and management, and we're pleased to have you on to learn about all that, Clarissa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks again, Clarissa, for coming on. I don't know, it's starting to become a tradition for us to have as many roadrunners on the show as possible. So, I mean, I don't know if you're like the fourth or fifth one already. So, but thanks again anyway for taking time out your day to come talk with us today. All right, cool.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Nice.
go Runners. I forgot to shout them out. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Go Runners.
Heads up, right?
Go Runners. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so cool. We always like to kick the show off by kind of like letting you tell us about like where you're at now currently in your career, what you currently do. It's been a while since we've been at UTSA, and you've had a great career since then. But I know currently you're like an engineering manager at Atlas, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your current role is and what's a typical day like as an engineering manager?
Yeah, so at Atlas creates affordable anamorphic lenses for the cinema world. So, filmed entertainment and TV shows. As an engineering manager, I manage a team of about 7 engineers, ranging from optical engineers to optomechanical and even a manufacturing engineer. And basically also doing a little bit of project management work in with that. So it's kind of anything that the team needs on an organizational level, right? Making sure that they have the tools, supplies, any type of programs or things that they need in order to go about their day-to-day business and their day-to-day work, but also looking at the large, picture roadmaps of what the company has in store for the next year to 5 years, and trying to make sure that we allocate, those resources accordingly so that we can try to, make up some cool products as fast as possible and get them out there to the public.
Dope. Interesting. This is something that I definitely would not have even thought an engineer would be doing, but I mean, I think it's really awesome that you are doing it. And you've had a couple of jobs throughout your career that I kind of felt like, typical people don't think, hey, an engineer can do this. And definitely cinematography or lenses is one of them. Quick question. We don't have this in the notes, but when you talked about it, I thought about it. Are there any like cool projects or movies that we might know that like your lenses have been used for?
Yeah, Atlas lenses have been used on Ariana Grande's "Thank You Next" music video.
Okay.
More recently, I believe there's the movie "Don't Look Up" is coming out with Leonardo DiCaprio and a couple other major names. So some Atlas lenses have been used on that as well. They've been used in a lot of major motion pictures and are continuing to be used in a lot of major motion pictures. So we get to work with a lot of awesome directors of photography that like to come and grab demo lenses and, even get to see the kind of side stuff that we're working on and get to play with them. So
Yeah, I'll be looking out for Don't Look Up. Like, I'm a big Netflix fan. So I'll definitely be watching that this weekend and see, hey, if I can tell like any differences or something like that. That's cool. All right, cool. So now that we kind of established like what you do now in your current role, we're gonna kind of come back to it, but we always like to kind of start with like the end in mind. And I guess typically starting around college. So I met you, a fellow mechanical engineering major at the University of Texas, San Antonio. I'm always curious to know like what sparked your interest in majoring in mechanical engineering in college.
in college, so actually my spark came in about middle school. So when I was in the seventh grade, I was, one of those GT students, gifted and talented, and they pulled all the GT girls out of class, and we did a Q&A panel session with a bunch of women engineers. They were trying to get other young girls interested in STEM fields and primarily engineering. And at the time, I was just like, whatever. I was in seventh grade. I was like 12 years old, like definitely not thinking about my career, but what none of them knew about me was that my parents took my brother and I to, all the Six Flags that are here in Texas, right? So there used to be one in Houston, but there was one in also Dallas and San Antonio. And then there's also SeaWorld in San Antonio as well. And so my parents every weekend took us to one of those. And so I kind of just grew up inside of theme parks. And on top of that, I was like obsessed with Disney growing up as well. I still pretty much am, but like, super, super obsessed. And at the end of that Q&A panel session, one of again, not knowing any of this about me, one of the ladies kind of screamed out like, "You can even build rides for Disney." And at that point on, my life was kind of made up right there. I was like, all right, I don't need any other direction. Like, I know what I'm going to go do. And I kind of made it happen. So from that point on, I was like, all right, I'm going to do engineering. And so when I got into high school, I actually ended up at a high school that had an engineering class. So I even started in high school doing engineering and taking those classes, learning kind of basic engineering principles on structures. We did a lot of stuff with like bridges and towers, just kind of understanding shapes of what makes a solid structure, those triangles.
Yep.
And then went on to, going to UTSA for mechanical engineering. So I actually started really young. On top of that, I don't know, what other states do, and I believe Texas still does this, but all throughout high school, I believe as soon as you're a sophomore, at least when I was, there, as soon as you became a sophomore in high school, you were allowed to take 2 free community college courses every semester. So I took advantage of that the second that it was available to me. And so I did calculus 1 through 3 before I even graduated high school. And that allowed me to move through college a lot quicker, So I think when I graduated high school, I had something like 36 college credits.
Wow.
Some of those weren't applicable, like my speech class somehow wasn't applicable for an English, course, but I don't know. Anyway, I took advantage of that. I got all my math classes out of the way early on, didn't have to worry about those, and just really focused on engineering by the time I got into college. And that was, that's something that I back then endorsed a lot of, and that I tried to get a lot of, people entering high school to start thinking about, because it made a huge impact on my life.
Smart.
From when I went to high school, that was called a dual credit program. Now,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Were you taking classes at the community college? Oh, first of all, which community college did collaborated with your high school, first of all?
Yeah, Austin Community College. So I am born and raised in Austin, and so collaborated with Austin Community College.
Okay. So did you have to go to ACC, or could you take that class on campus at your high school?
There were a couple of different options. So there were, I think, like 2 classes that they offered at the actual high school, which was like major and microeconomics. So the teacher actually came to us to actually teach at the high school. Everything else, I actually went to the community college locations to take the classes there. So I, was acting like an adult, like as much as I could.
Right. Right. No, that's amazing. No, I remember doing dual credit, but I never needed to go to like the local community college in Houston, but you actually went to the campus. So
Yeah, again, I think a lot of other students kind of took advantage of just the ones that would satisfy, both high school and
mm-hmm.
college. And I kind of took other classes that were really taking place of my electives in high school. So like I was able to leave like 2 hours early or come into school 2 hours late because technically I was off, at those hours at the other locations trying to take those different classes that I don't know if other individuals really thought about taking at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's great that you mentioned that, and I hope other people will kind of like take your advice because that could save you a lot of money. I don't know. Did you
huge.
take out loans or how did you kind of pay for school?
Yeah, for school, definitely both student and parent loans.
Okay.
So, mhm.
Gotcha. Yes, I mean, I'm glad you did take advantage of like the dual credit as much as possible. I think I met you. I was probably like a senior in college, and you were like one of the few people. You were a couple years younger than me, but you were like one of the few people that knew exactly what you were doing, like to a T. You're like, okay, I'm graduating. I'm going to go work for Disney, and that's what I'm doing. And I was like, all right, cool, like And we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but mechanical engineering is no like just easy major, right? Like it's very technical, very rigorous at times. Can you kind of talk about some of the challenges that you faced from a technical standpoint, and how you kind of overcame those challenges throughout colleges?
Yeah, honestly, there's some classes that, they just kind of don't click and you have to take that extra little bit of time to like really, ask questions, understand the basics that are happening within that class. I remember one of my teachers at UTSA kind of turning around and being like, I don't understand why you don't understand. I was like, whoa, all right, fair enough, I guess. But I mean, at least I'm here trying to ask the questions and understand. And that also kind of happened even when I was younger. I actually ended up struggling a lot with just the basic algebra
Mm.
because for whatever reason at the beginning it didn't click. It didn't work out. Like I didn't understand it. But then I had like that one equation that all of a sudden just brought everything together and all of a sudden it clicked, right? And then I was able to do calculus all throughout high school. There's some of those things that happen in college as well. Like you get to a particular subject that you're just like, this isn't working. Like my brain for some reason doesn't want to wrap around what is happening. And so I think it's important for people to understand that it's okay that that happens. Like you're not going to be, perfect at everything. You're not going to understand everything right from the beginning. You will struggle a little bit, but it's about, keeping that perseverance of really trying to stay on, ask the questions, ask from as many different people as possible, because just because one or two people might not frame it in a way that you don't understand, that third or fourth person that you go and ask, they might say something in a completely different way that all of a sudden your brain snaps to and is like, oh, okay, that's what everyone's been trying to tell me now, right? So it's definitely, I think, yeah, mechanical engineering, going to engineering school is a lot of that. And it's important for people to remember that it's okay that you're not going to get some things on the first try. I think it also imposes a lot of imposter syndrome on people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important to try to, really stick with it and overcome it because, there is that stereotype that it's just so hard and it's difficult, but it's not too hard that you can't make it through, and that's what's important is just being able to really stick to it and try your best.
I'm glad you spoke
Yeah.
to, hey, like pushing through those challenges and working through it to succeed. We have our own perspective and experiences as Black and Latino men in STEM, but I think as a woman in STEM, you have probably even a whole nother handset of challenges that you have to deal with and stereotypes and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Can you talk about some of the challenges you may have faced as a woman majoring in mechanical engineering and how you kind of overcame those?
Yeah. So on top of being a woman, I'm also only 4'10", so I am tiny. And a lot of people kind of couple that, right? So already you're kind of looked down. Engineering in any industry you go to is a male dominated industry, right? And even more so, it's a white male dominated industry, and that's the truth. So one, you're already kind of looked down upon being a female, and then also being short in stature. People tend to automatically adjust their mind to like you're a kid, regardless of your age, regardless of how you hold, you maintain your composure. You're short, so you're a child, right?
Yeah.
So coming across both, I've definitely had some interesting experiences in my fields. I mean, I think I'm like one of the few people that have actually been like flat out like yelled at, like these people just got so frustrated, and I will say that these were white males that just got so frustrated that they just screamed their heads off at me.
Wow.
And again, a lot of that I attribute to also being little, like being small, because you don't see them you see them getting just as frustrated about the same situations with other people, but not at the same level that they're getting
Yeah.
frustrated with me, right? So and definitely not with men either. I've never seen that type of that energy go directed towards a male, irregardless of ethnicity or race. I haven't seen that. So I have actually been just full on yelled at, screamed at, top of
It's
lungs.
crazy.
I even had one guy also like, give me one of these with the finger and like try to shame me, and I'm like, what? Like, what is happening here?
Wow.
So you definitely get talked to differently, for sure.
Yeah, it always takes my breath away how much abuse women get, just subtly and offhandedly. And yeah, thank you for sharing, because that's often pushed under the rug, and people don't talk about it. But thank you for sharing that. What advice would you provide to women coming up in the industry on how to succeed in an industry that's so laden with lots of hurdles?
Yeah, I actually, anytime I come across a young female engineer, even now, and even when I started, as soon as I come across anybody that's kind of, newer than I am, right? I kind of take that upon my personal goal to kind of mentor them and build them up as well. And at the end of the day, stand your ground, take up space. And that's really what it's about. You may never get the respect that you deserve, depending on what company you're with, what industry you're in. But at the end of the day, you can still gain some respect by standing your ground and holding true, sticking to facts, right? What is actually happening within the situation that you're working on with people, and making sure that you are coming to everything with those facts and with reason. So and just to not be afraid to take up that space as well. It's important, because the more you do it and the more you try to stand your ground and be predominant in it, that's what's going to make a difference for the future and for those other generations coming up. You will be seen as being the bitch, right? Being that hard ass that like, oh, here she comes.
Yeah.
And I know that that's what some individuals have perceived me as throughout my career. And at the end of the day, if you genuinely believe what you did and what you said is right within any situation that you are presenting yourself in, that's what you have to stick to. At the moment that in your conscience that maybe you did something wrong, then you also need to correct that, own up to it, accept the responsibility of it, apologize if there's an apology necessary. But if you know what you did or what you said is right in the entire situation, then stick to it, and let other individuals also reflect on how they handled the situation, because there's two or more people in a situation, everyone's going to perceive something a little bit different. So at the end of the day, just hold your ground and take up space.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I mean, women got it tough. I couldn't do it, especially women of color. I mean, it's really tough because it's like you want to be strong, but at the same time, a woman's strength is a lot of times perceived as, like you said, just being argumentative or whatever the case may be. It's sad that that's the way it is, but I'm glad you said, hey, the advice that you gave, I really think that women should heed that advice and be confident in who they are and that they deserve to be in the spaces that they're in. So earlier we kind of talked about your dream job, right? Working at Disney. Um,
Yeah.
and like I said, when I first met you, you were like, yo, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. And I don't know if it was either shortly before or after I met you, you had just completed or you got a chance to do an internship at Disney, right? So you finally secured your dream job working at Disney as an intern. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I was sandwiched, or when I met you, I was sandwiched between both. So I had finished doing the Disney College program,
Okay.
uh, like pretty much fresh out of high school, and I was a custodian at the Disneyland Resort, actually Disneyland Park. And believe it or not, that role, while it doesn't sound fun to pick up trash and clean up bathrooms, it was actually probably the most fun job I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
And, there's a reason why a lot of people actually retire to go back to do that job, just for fun and, to kind of gain the perks of working at Disney. But it was amazing. And then after I completed my mechanical engineering degree, I was thankful and grateful enough to have gotten a professional internship, mechanical engineering internship at Walt Disney World. So back in Florida on the opposite coast. And I worked with two different departments there. And I mean, it was amazing. So you kind of got to see me right between both, and being able to not only have worked in the park as an hourly role and really see what those hourly employees have to deal with day to day with guests, but then also on the corporate side of being in a team that gets to then build and maintain all of the magic for the guests that are happening every day.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like you had the mindset of like, I don't care what I got to do. I'm about to get in the door. I don't care if I got to pick up trash or whatever, or cook funnel cake or whatever. Like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
What advice would you give others who may be looking to get a job at Disney?
Yeah, definitely. Disney College program is where you want to start. You have to, I believe the requirement is still that you just have to have at least one semester of college after high school. And so, community college definitely counts. I think that's what I did. I graduated high school. I did one semester at community college, and then I took off to Disneyland. And then I came back and did the rest of my degree. So definitely Disney College program. And to your point, Andrew, accept anything. To believe it or not, like I actually was ready to turn it down, because when I learned that I was going to do custodian, I was like, I don't want to go to like the happiest place on earth and pick up trash. Like, that doesn't sound cool. And my dad is actually the one that was like, excuse me, you've been waiting for how long? Right. And I was a little princess growing up, to be completely honest. I didn't really have to like take out the trash or anything at home. I didn't have to do, much cleaning other than my room and, my laundry and my stuff. So it was like, but my dad kind of reframed everything for me. It was like, come on, kid, what the hell's your problem? And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. And I'm glad I did, because also, again, being a little princess at 18 years old, it was a very humbling experience, understanding what those individuals have to do. And I'm actually very grateful to have had that opportunity at such a young age to do that type of a service role. Because again, it was just a humbling experience. And I think I would have been a completely different person, probably would have been more of a monster and nightmare, really, had I not had that experience at that young age. I was also a campus representative. First year I got to UTSA to try to recruit individuals to do the college program. And I would tell them, if you do select custodian on your application, chances are you're probably going to get picked, because not very many people want to do it, right? So if it's your dream to just kind of want to go get an experience, do it. And believe it or not, I've had like 3 or 4 people that did it after I encouraged them to, and they also said it was the most fun job ever. Like, surprisingly enough, yes, it's gross, it's dirty, it's nasty, but it's also like the coolest job ever. It's like the one job that you're not landlocked, where you get to kind of roam the park and do a bunch of, talk to so many different people. You're not just sitting at, one podium pushing a button for hours. You get to constantly move around, talk to so many people. So it's honestly one of the coolest roles. So keep an open mind. And secondly, for the professional internships, I didn't want to take off a semester of school to do any more internships with Disney. I took off the fall or spring semester of 2010. So, and summer. So, in order to go do that opportunity, but I didn't want to do any more. So all throughout school, when I had applied to the professional internships with Disney, I was always applying to summer, and I never got them. And when I finally was at my graduation and was able to get this opportunity in Florida, I realized why I never got them. And that's because anytime somebody else who's willing to take off that semester, especially during the spring, they're getting extended through the summer. And so those summer spots fill up with people who are getting extended. So if you really, really, really want to work with Disney in particular, just know that you will have to kind of make that sacrifice, which is not a bad sacrifice to make. And I wish I actually wish I knew better earlier. But you will have to take a semester off if you want to really try to get that opportunity either in the spring or fall. And, if you make it to the spring, you can extend. And I think I attributed that a lot to also why I didn't really get hired after my internship as well. And so I had one great, awesome year with 2 different teams at the resort, but there were people there that had already had like 2-3 years on me of internships.
Gotcha.
And they had built those relationships with, that many more teams across the resort. So it sucks and it's scary, especially with engineering. They say that the average is more of 5 to 6 years in school, depending on if really how much you can afford to take, each semester mentally, physically, financially, but also if you're also able to do summer classes, right? So if you can afford to take a semester off, definitely consider that. And that's really where your opportunity is going to be, being able to get one of those professional internships at Disney.
Awesome. Great advice.
No, amazing. And really quickly, how did you find this internship, and what are the best resources you recommend for other students to sign up for this or apply to this?
Yeah. So college program, I actually found out from my cousin. I was actually in the 5th grade when I found out about the college program. And there was a recruiter that went to my cousin's high school and gave them all these little bands and tchotchkes and things like that. And he brought it to me knowing how much I was obsessed with Disney. So that's how I learned about that. And then the PIs, once you're in the college program, they talk about the professional internships from then on. And if you go to just, Disney Careers website, I think it's just disneycareers.com, you can filter out internships particularly and search through all those. And if you prefer one coast over the other, you can also add in that filter. So if you, don't want to go to Florida, because Florida's pretty humid and kind of gross, but you can. It was still a great opportunity for a whole year. I don't know if I would ever want to go back, but yeah.
Nice.
All right. Now, at this point, you're about to graduate. Maybe you've been applying to jobs. Maybe you already gotten a job. Talk to us about the transition from college to your first job. And what was that job?
Yeah. So right after college, I went to Disney World, and that's where I did the year-long internship after that. So I graduated December 2013, and January 2014, I went and worked at Disney as an intern. So my first job out of school was actually an internship. It wasn't a full-time position, as an actual engineer. And I was okay with that because, again, it was about getting into the industry. Disney is a huge name, right, within the theme park industry. So, and again, unfortunately, was not able to get picked up for a full-time position after that. But it was difficult, to be honest. It was actually very, very difficult for me. A lot of people, don't think about the theme park industry being, a career, and therefore other industries don't really see that experience as valuable, I think. So as my internships were coming to an end and I started applying to places, even trying to apply to aerospace and automotive and, all those other kind of, medical industries, the more predominant ones that people think of, I wasn't getting any interviews. I wasn't getting anything because, all right, this kid went and worked on like parades, like, okay, and I don't think they knew also how to link the information together. And that might have also been on me. I don't know if maybe my resume just wasn't up to par or something and I wasn't selling myself right. It could have been that too, but I wasn't really getting any interviews. And so I was actually unemployed for 9 months.
Wow.
From December 2014 to about September 2015, when I had applied to, I actually didn't even see one of the postings for Universal, but I had applied to like a assistant manager for warehouse distribution, I think at Universal. And the recruiter that was on that role was like, this isn't right. And they forwarded my resume over to a different recruiter who was recruiting for the ride supervisor role. So that just kind of, I think fate just kind of, fell into my hands there, and everything ended up working out. So I got a call for that role instead, even though I didn't apply for it. And that's, the rest is history, kind of. I
Yeah.
started my experience at Universal, and I had the opportunity to work two different roles and departments at Universal, and was there for almost 5 years. So
I've only like read about stuff like that happening on like LinkedIn, where somebody applied for one job and somebody like sent it to another. But I mean, it's awesome to actually hear that happened to you. I'm glad it did. Real quick, what was your role at? You said you were a ride supervisor. So what exactly did that entail at Universal?
yeah, I got hired in as a ride supervisor, and I was specifically hired to open up the new Harry Potter rides on the West Coast at Universal Studios Hollywood. And so that pertained, when you're a ride supervisor, assistant manager, manager, you're the owner of the ride that you have been given. So anything that's happening within that ride, you are responsible for, and you need to make sure that you're handling business, basically. So that also included managing a large team of about 45 or so technicians that did the actual maintenance. So, all of that kind of labor management and understanding where labor resources really needed to go. And those labor resources need, material and equipment resources, right? So then also factoring that in, understanding the budgets of the ride, what's the cost impact into purchasing the things to open these new rides, right? So there's one aspect of, this is a new ride that we're going to open. We have to gear up for this. And then there's another aspect of, okay, now that this ride is open, what's the maintenance cost of it? So everything from labor management to budget management and, project management. But after the supervisor role, I did get promoted to assistant manager. And that's really special to me because I was actually the first assistant manager within that department at Universal Studios Hollywood. So, that's something I get to kind of cherish for the rest of my life. And knowing that was kind of created for me, and it allowed other opportunities to open up for everyone else that kind of came after me as well. So there's that. But then so that was all on the sustaining side of the ride, right? So once we opened the ride, we got it running, going, and making sure we're keeping this thing running every single day, safe for, the guests every day. Then I transitioned over to the technical manager role, which is more of a project management role with Universal Creative. And Universal Creative are the ones that, design and implement the new rides and attractions that come into the park. So more of the project-based work of, let's get this thing built and installed, and then we hand off to the team, the rides team, which is what I was originally hired on as.
I want to take a quick detour from our routine here and just ask, you are putting on display several different skills that I don't think was in the mechanical engineering curriculum at UTSA, if I'm not mistaken. So I like to lead into one of your certifications, your PMP in particular. And I wonder if that took a role in guiding you in doing that job.
Yeah, I didn't really think about the PMP like going into any of those roles. It was actually more of an afterthought after having done them and like being thrown into those roles and like, okay, this is like, oh, to your point, like this is a whole nother aspect of skill sets that somebody has to learn in order to be successful in this particular role, and even other roles, within other industries as well. So that the PMP was actually more of an afterthought of just, okay, this is the experiences that I've been kind of dealt, in my career. But yeah, I mean, another aspect is the fact that I think engineers are also always seen as kind of like antisocial, right? Or not
Stereotypically, yeah.
not very personable, or having those soft skills. So I would say in the theme park industry, that's actually something that's very, very important, is being able to find those engineers that do have more of those soft skills, more of those, interpersonal relationship building skills, because you have to speak with so many people all the time, whether it's within your own team or also, communicating with guests on a daily basis as well. So that's actually another factor into going into the theme park industry, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think when I first started off in engineering, I thought I was going to be like just working on my math problems in my corner, designing or building something. And then I get in the industry and it's like, no, you got to talk to all these people, send a bunch of emails, documentation is big. So I think all those skills that you mentioned, like, a lot of people stereotypically, they don't know that like the world of engineering is so much bigger than what you may think if you're not exposed to it. So I'm glad that you've shared that in the experiences that you've had throughout your career. So you've worked at both Disney and Universal. Like these are like the go-to spots in terms of like summer amusement parks. I would imagine like as an employee, you would get some pretty sweet perks, right? Like, do you get like to go to the front of the line whenever you want to, go get some funnel cakes, some churros, or whatever the case may be? Like, what are some of the perks of working at an amusement park?
Yeah, first and foremost is you definitely get free tickets for you and your family and friends. Both Disney and Universal kind of do them a little differently. But you still get, and then now, in the day of COVID, things are even a little bit weirder, right? With reservations and having to make reservations for specific days. You can't really just like show up and be like, hey, I'm here. But yeah, that's usually the first thing that friends and family get excited about when you you enter into a theme park is, hey, when are those free tickets available? And then, definitely at Universal, we would do park walks as much as we could just to get out of the office, go walk around the park in the middle of the day, go get on a ride, like go jump on, Revenge of the Mummy, the roller coaster, for lunch, just before lunch, and then go eat lunch afterwards. Right. Like it's definitely awesome being able to stop and take a 5-minute break to go jump on a ride where people are, having to plan this months out in advance for their vacations on what they're going to do. So it is a lot of fun. And also being able to eat like all the really tasty theme park food too for lunch, right? Like I can just walk over and grab something, take it back to my desk and enjoy that. So a lot of major perks in regards to that.
That's awesome. Yeah, those Disneyland churros. Oh my God, bro. All right, cool. One quick question just for people that are listening. So like before I worked at GM designing cars, I always thought like, hey, GM does everything in-house in terms of engineering and planning and design. But I quickly found out, no, we hire a bunch of suppliers that create the wheels, the engine, all the different components of it. Can you quickly talk about, like, from a ride standpoint, like, does Universal design these rides, or are they partnering with other engineering companies to create the rides themselves?
Yeah, I would say all of the theme parks, all the major theme park companies actually partner with a lot of smaller vendors that they collaborate with. So all of the engineers that we do have at Universal or at Disney or even Six Flags, all those other amusement parks, they partner very closely with them. They go through the design reviews with those third-party vendors, making sure that they are sticking to the overall goal of the feature, right? So if it's a ride or if it's like an animatronic figure or special effects or something of that nature, they're still side by side working with them to make sure that it's being done not only to the technical specifications, but also the creative intent, right? Is this also looking the way we anticipate it to look? Because that's the other aspect of the theme parks that might be a little bit different than other industries, is this needs to look a very particular way in order to really take guests out of the real world and into whatever world you're trying to immerse them in.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to have another episode to talk about ride design and talk us through the process of that. But we one more question, linear type question. How long did you stay at Universal, and what prompted your departure?
Yeah, I unfortunately was at Universal just like 2 months short of 5 years, which is pretty sad. I wish I could have been able to hit that like milestone marker. And at Universal, they also give these cool little like cubes, these like glass cubes that have your year, that you've made it through. And so that was
cool.
That was really unfortunate. But I was let go because of COVID. Basically, there was like many other companies out there in various different industries. There was a large group of us that got hit, and it was understandable. So something that also needs to be known is you have, again, the sustainment side, which are like all of the roles within the park itself. So like the ride supervisor and assistant manager role that I had there on the sustainment side, there's going to be a lot more job security there because you're part of running the day-to-day of the park. When you go into a Universal Creative Technical Manager role, or even like a Walt Disney Imagineering role, all of those roles, even though you're full-time, you're project-based. So the second that project is up, you could potentially not have any job. And that's basically what happened was we had finished up the job. My contract was coming to an end, and it was just kind of right now, with the state of the world being in just complete chaos, they basically didn't extend a bunch of us, right? And they didn't, and a lot of contracts, a lot of projects that were going to continue to go on ended up having to be canceled because we had to shut down the parks, right? And we didn't have any of that income coming in to the company in order to justify continuing on with other projects that were originally on the calendar. So,
Gotcha. So after you were unfortunately laid off, what was kind of the timeline and the process to getting brought on at Atlas?
yeah. So, I thankfully didn't see any actual unemployment time, and I was picked up by a company called Cast and Crew, where I was a product solutions specialist. Cast and Crew manages digital platforms for the filmed entertainment industry, basically for all of those productions to be able to have new hires fill out all their start paperwork, their online paper, doing that all digitally and online in the world of COVID. Also being able to process their time cards, submit their hours all in a digital platform. So I'm very, very thankful to Cast and Crew for taking me on there. But it was also a role that wasn't, entirely playing to my skill sets and really where I wanted to be in my career. So I did kind of look elsewhere, and that's when about 6-7 months later is when I found the opportunity at Atlas Lens Co. So, and I was originally hired in as the engineering project manager at Atlas Lens Company, but as the time moved on and just kind of seeing what else needed to be done with the team, and me kind of taking that initiative to help out the team where everything else was, is where I got the promotion actually just at the beginning of November. So just about a month ago.
Awesome. Dope.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So we're doing good on time. You're doing amazing. We have like a professional development segment. We typically like to finish it in about like 10 minutes max. It's about 4 or 5 questions that are really relevant for those who may be looking for a job. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, because you're actually a decision maker, a hiring manager. So I think you have a lot of valuable input. All right. So during this segment, I will make my disclaimer. I'm going to ask you about your salary, right? So if you don't want to give an exact number, feel free to give like a range or whatever. But keep in mind, you could be helping somebody know like, hey, what kind of number they might want to look for or ask for when it comes to negotiation. So just throwing that out there, hopefully to guilt trip you into saying your exact salary and benefits. But all right.
I thought he was gonna guilt trip you about Disney tickets. That's what I thought. That's okay.
The Disney tickets.
I thought he was gonna play that card there, but he's gonna play it here. It's smart. It's for the pod. It's for the pod. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The kids need to know. The people need to know.
There you go.
All right. So the first question, Eli brought up that you have your PMP, your project management certification. I also know Eli also mentioned that you have your EIT. Do you feel like either one of these certifications have helped you throughout your career in terms of either A, making you better prepared for your job, or B, helping you get a certain role that you applied for?
Yeah, I think they've both, depending on which role I applied for, have definitely helped with having me stand out. Regardless if you continue to keep up a certification or not, just getting it, the fact that you went through whatever kind of, schooling or training that led up to it in order for you to then sit and take excruciating tests. Because I think the EIT, and even the PEs are like a full 8-hour day, right? And you do get to break for lunch, and that's about it, but it's a full 8-hour day. And then the PMP was a 4.5-hour test. And I think I only finished with like 15 minutes left to spare. And the fact that you can actually get it done and get there is, I think, a testament to not only your knowledge, but also who you are as a person, right? That drive and that discipline that you have to actually make that happen. And whether or not you continue to keep up the certification, because there are continuing education units, that go on, that's another story. But I think, me being somebody who does look at resumes for consideration and hiring people, it sets you aside in that regard, that, okay, you're putting in effort elsewhere than just doing your day-to-day job, if that makes sense. And I think that that's what has helped me stand out with my certifications as well.
Okay, awesome. All right, next question. What are the typical salary and benefits for an engineering manager at an amusement theme park and or at a lens manufacturing company like Atlas?
Yeah. Um, I will say, where do I want to start with first? Um, Entering into the theme park world, again, kind of as a ride supervisor, I came in right around 55,000. So I don't even necessarily know if that is, competitive to other industries or anything like that, but I felt like it was pretty decent coming in more or less fresh out of school and having some experience. And I was told that that was also on the higher end of the scale for that role that I was applying for. Um, so over the course of being at Universal, I went from 55 when I got my promotion to assistant manager. I was then at 75,000, if I remember correctly. And then as I transitioned over to technical manager with Universal Creative, I went up to 95. Sounds great. And I am actually, was really proud of that 95 salary. Kind of going back to the beginning, Andrew, where you asked, the whole men versus women, situation. I will say that I was ecstatic when I got to that $90,000 role. But then I had a white male counterpart come up to me and was like, "Hey, would you mind sharing your salary with me?" And I shared it because I was proud. I was like, "Hey, yeah, this is what I
Yeah.
made." And he turned around and was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Well, how much are you making?" It's like 115. And I was like,
Wow.
right. And, I felt like we had some pretty comparable, experience and we were doing a very similar role. He did have a little bit more work than I did as far as how many scopes of work he was responsible
Yeah.
for. But that's a pretty big difference, right? It's about a 20K difference. And, again, I can't say that I don't feel that my gender had anything to do with it or not. It was an eye opener for me at that time, and this was only 2 years ago or something. So that's something to consider of. And again, for women of color out there, if you are in the engineering field, hold your ground and take up space, and don't be afraid to ask for that, because somebody else was getting that in a position with comparable experience that I had. So now, as within Atlas, I also kind of want to, since I'm still working here, I do also want to respect them, not dish out too much. But I will say I was able to transfer over into Atlas right around that 95K as a project manager, and with the promotion into engineering manager, I have officially hit six figures. So that is great. And I'm not at just the base six figures. I'll say, I'm in the range of 1 to 120. So we'll give
All right. Dope.
that.
That's good. And you
So
know what? The story you told is exactly why I asked this question, because I feel like so many times the biggest issue with salaries is transparency or lack thereof. And we may
mhm.
be, as people of color, maybe negotiating, hey, I want six figures for this job. And then you find out that, hey, your counterpart got 140, or like in your experience, like they
Yeah.
got 20K more than you. And you're excited because you're like, yo, I hit six figures. That was my goal, or 95, that was my goal. But competitive or the market is actually 20 grand higher than what you asked for. So I'm glad and thankful that you did share that. And hopefully people can use that advice or those numbers for their own career to benefit them. Um, from talking to you before we did the interview, I know you've had some experience with like negotiating your salary though, right? And that might be what's
Yeah.
helped you out in your current promotion that you've received. What advice or recommendations would you give for others who are hoping to negotiate their salary?
I think anytime that I have gone and actually asked for a request, I've gone in with more or less an actual document that I wrote up that's like, this is what my current role is. And, kind of stating whether or not you're actually hitting everything, right? And then this is what I've kind of already been doing that I feel, constitutes an increase in pay. And when I also kind of approached the conversation within Atlas. And I brought this up to some of our leaders. One of them actually helped me out and was like, well, this is what I want to see, where he was asking for, not only what you're doing, what I was doing now, what I was hired to do, basically pulling that job description that I had applied to and gotten the job for. And then showing, the extras that I've been doing. But then also, what can you do for the company in the future, right? So now let's look a year to 2 years to 5 years out. Because if a company is going to want to promote you, right, they want to know that you're there for a commitment. And so that's another aspect, is kind of formulating some document that shows what you're doing, what you were hired to do, what you're actually doing now, and then what benefits will you bring to the company in the future as well. And for me, I actually assigned, when I went into this more recently, I assigned dollar values to those I made a table is what I did, to be honest. So my little table of this is what I'm doing. This is my actual salary. I do agree that this was the original salary, but this is what I have been doing as well. And so I was I feel like all of this extra equates to 10K more. And then, I got my PMP. So it's well, I think that also equates to a 5K plus, right? So I laid that out. And I assigned what I felt was fair to me, the values of the workload that I was doing and what I was bringing to the company, right? So you can definitely be the one to offer up that budget, right? Or that cost incentive to it, right? It's not just hey, I'm doing a bunch of work, give me money, but tell them what you really feel you deserve. So
putting those engineering skills to use in more ways than one, right? I'm gonna figure out how to get my raise in here. That's awesome. I love it. One more question for you. So you've actually have an extensive amount of history in your throughout your entire career of managing teams and being a key decision maker, and not only that, but hiring people as well. In terms of maybe in your current role, what kind of characteristics or traits are you looking for typically for a candidate to have in order to hire them or decide, hey, I'm going to bring this person onto my team?
Yeah, people that just have that opportunity, or that willingness to learn, basically is what's important. For certain roles, it is important, I think, to have a degree, and that, especially if you're looking for engineering, yes, it's good to have that engineering degree. I think a lot of engineering degrees are also kind of able to be cross-trained, right? So I hired somebody at Atlas who actually has a manufacturing engineering degree, but we're also bringing her on and getting her up to speed on a lot of mechanical and optomechanical work. So again, it's really somebody that has that personality and that exudes that personality of wanting to learn and willing to learn, and basically being able to take on anything that we really throw at them to try to figure it out. That's what's important to me. It's not really what do you have right now. Some of that is important, but it's more about, are you willing to learn from us, see how we're doing things, also provide your input, your ideas, your opinions. But really at the end of the day, are you willing to learn from everyone else that's around you and also teach, right? So are you also willing, if you know something that maybe others don't know, are you willing to also give that back to the rest of your team? And that's something that I take through with all of my roles, is sharing just kind of the gift of knowledge, really.
Gotcha. One quick follow-up. How do you typically source most of your candidates? Are most of your candidates coming through just through the HR portal on the career website, or are people hitting you up on LinkedIn yo, give me a job? How are people typically finding you that are that you're hiring down the line?
Yeah, most of them did come through, just the application portal that we submitted within our HR administrator, basically. There were a couple of times where I went through to LinkedIn and, did a search for who has this, if I'm looking for an optomechanical, who has this, this position within their profile, and looked at those individuals and kind of came across I didn't quite find any that I wanted to reach out to, but that's definitely something that I know people do out there. So I did it, and I have also myself been, like headhunted, if you will, by recruiters on LinkedIn as well, where they'll send me a message and be like, hey, can you apply to this? And so that has happened. But I primarily just kind of combed through all of the resumes from those who submitted through the actual application.
Okay. I lied. One more quick follow up. Are you hiring right now for people who may want a job?
I will say after the new year, we may or may not be posting like 1 or 2 positions. Yeah.
Okay. So hit up Clarissa on LinkedIn. All right, I'm done. Eli, take it away.
No, hold on. Before you go there, what would be the best way for someone to approach you or someone at Atlas about getting a job, or any other company for that matter?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if I can like give a good answer to that. For me, I'm somebody, if I get an email from someone, like it might be a week or 2 late, but I'm still going to try to reply and help you out and give you my like honest, feedback, whatever it may be. I will say I have been in the job hunting position where I'm trying to reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn and emailing them, messaging them, and I get absolutely nothing. Even recruiters that have like in their bios, like, hey, feel free to reach out to me at any time for any questions. And it's like, why have that if you're not going to respond? Like, I get you need a break too, but then take that out of your bio, please, because you're giving me false hope here, right? So anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to take a message. Just email, Atlas Lens Co. Like, I know Atlas Lens Co. is everyone's very laid back, very cool. If you are interested in us, we are interested in you, kind of a situation. We want to get to know you because we are looking to try to grow. It is a startup company. It is on the smaller side, and we want to start, taking over the world, basically, right, with our lenses. For other companies, I don't know. Like I said, I've been in that position, and I have not received any responses back. So.
So the message I think I'm taking away from this is reach out. Do it in a classy way, be nice, but don't be afraid to reach out, right?
Yeah, to follow up with that, irregardless of if it's just a message to somebody on LinkedIn or through email, I would also say don't be afraid to apply to positions that you aren't like qualified for, or you might be overqualified for. Because again, with Universal, that's what happened. I applied to some other random position. They were like, this chick isn't a fit for this, but they threw me over to the right role, right? I've actually had that happen quite a few times to me where I applied to something else and people are like, no, you should be over here actually. And we want to consider you for this instead. So regardless of reaching out directly to people, apply for positions that, are still good fits, but might not be a perfect fit because they might see something in you, especially when you get into the interview phase. If you're lucky enough for that they'll still consider you. And that actually happened with, like I mentioned, the manufacturing engineer that we hired at Atlas. She applied to an optical position that we had open, no experience. And we were looking for somebody pretty experienced in the optical position. So she didn't get that. But when we realized we wanted somebody who was a little bit more entry level, I went back through all those resumes instead of reposting a new position because I knew we already had a good group of candidates. And I chose her from that. So I've done it to somebody else now where I picked them for a different role than the role that they originally applied to. So regardless of actually reaching out to people through LinkedIn or emails or anything, also just start applying, because as cheesy as it sounds, you really miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
True. Great advice.
And on that note, we have approached the hour. And we could probably talk another hour with you, Clarissa. But thank you for giving us this hour. And no, of course. And Andrew hit you with his favorite question, the salary question. I'm gonna hit you with my favorite question that I like to torture our guests with, and that's the big picture question. Now, big picture. So more often than not, I find that people of color are seldom asked what they think a just world looks like. And how do we get there? So this is one of the reasons I love this question. But essentially, it is an infinity gauntlet question. And if you had the infinity gauntlet and you had the ability to change something with the snap of your fingers currently, what would you do to increase the amount of particularly women of color into STEM positions, STEM leadership positions like yourself?
It is a loaded question.
So feel free to go in any direction, whatever you
Um,
feel, because we're interested in your perspective. What do you think?
yeah. Oh my goodness. I think right now where we're at, it's a lot of generational situation that's going on. We're still fairly early on in the more, I think, kind of like liberal progressive mindset of that women can do whatever they want to do, and we're now just starting to educate the younger generations that they can do whatever that they want to do. So I think some of the reason why we're still not seeing women in um, engineering roles is that generation hasn't gotten there yet, that was really told to do anything and whatever, you know. So I think, yeah, if I had that gauntlet when I could kind of snap my fingers, and it would really be to kind of, as bad as it sounds, to take out the top generation of everybody that's kind of within a director or above at you know, not necessarily kill them off, but like remove them
Clarissa,
from their role.
oh my God. I'm like, you Thanos for real. You just gonna erase the
I,
No, no,
she's,
no, 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 not
boomers?
erase them.
she's
Just
saying
give
she's
them,
saying
give
that
them retirement early.
Yes.
You said
Let them
erase.
go enjoy.
she's saying Thanos had a point. That's what she's saying.
God, that's what I took from it.
No,
Clarissa.
no, 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 no,
No,
no.
Oh
let her
my God, we
finish.
gotta
Let her
Give
edit
them
this
finish.
early
out.
retirement. Let them go enjoy Hawaii, you know, the beachside
Oh my
ocean.
God.
Let them go do that. And so that way you have, you know, more
Just got
I know
dark
that
real
sounded
quick.
really
Got
bad.
real dark real quick, Eli.
No, but let me see if we can steer this. So I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a generational resistance to having more
Yeah.
women of color, people of color in general, in those leadership positions, and that we really need that to change once the younger generation starts to get those experiences, starts to build their resumes, and be more qualified to reach those positions.
Yeah, basically until I think that current generation of executive leadership that's in, you know, the majority of the workforce right now has retired out. Basically, I don't think we're going to see that change, and it just has to do with that generational um, progress.
Amazing. That's a great answer. I love when Eli asks this question because we get so many great answers. And I mean, I jokingly like teasing you about your answer, but I definitely see your point. Like, there's people in power from a political standpoint that are still arguing if global warming is a thing, like if we actually need to take care of our planet. So you think about that on a big scale and think about what's happening on a small local scale at some of these companies, and like the people that are making decisions, they may feel like a woman shouldn't be in leadership. A woman's not
Yeah.
strong enough, or she has other priorities as far as like kids and all that other stuff. So I'm really glad. I appreciate your answer that you gave.
Yeah, I really meant it.
Thank you.
Take it anywhere you want it, and you took it there, and that's perfectly fine.
I didn't.
We're gonna have to talk
But
to Atlas HR.
no,
and see
no,
if they need
no.
some counseling.
No. We all. I know what you mean. We all know what you meant, Clarissa. But it's very insightful. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for joining us today. We really appreciate your insights, sharing your story, all your personal struggles, professional struggles in your career in STEM. And is there anything else you want to shout out, promote before we send you off?
Not that I can think of. Might be a little rosy cheek now after that, Andrew. Thank you. But again, just, yeah, you know, maybe just reiterate to all the women of color out there. Again, just hold your ground and take up space. You deserve it. You deserve to be there. You deserve every little bit as much as all of those men do. So
Awesome.
Here.
Thanks for joining us, Clarissa, again. You're truly an inspiration. You know, that's why I wanted us to have you on the show, because there's some women, young girls out there or young women out there that are really going to be able to look at your story and hear what you've gone through and where you're at currently and really take a lot away from it. So thanks again for coming on.
thank you guys for having me.
And for Custom Journeys, That is the end of our episode. I'm Eliseo. I'm here with my co-host Andrew, and we're out of here.
See ya.